Good evening, Dhamma friends. We are going to begin this evening Sutta Study Class. Today, I join with you from Mississauga, the Western Buddhist Temple. I came to this temple 2 days ago for some programs. So I'm still here so that I thought of doing this class without any interruption, even though there are some programs for me. So that I'm here at the Mississauga Buddhist Vihara, and I hope you are doing great today. It is September 16, Saturday. So I wish may this effort of studying Sutta help us understand more Dhamma for our benefits and everyone who participate in the discussion. So with that wholesome thought in mind, let me begin the Sutta study class formally by reciting the Namo Tassa 3 times to respect the Supreme Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dhamma friends, for today's Sutta discussion, I selected a topic for it. The topic is an exposition of Paticca based on few suttas. When we talk about the very important Dhamma facts, Paticca, you all know that the Buddha and great disciples of the Buddha have delivered many discourses on this topic, Paticca. The reason why it happens because the Paticca is deep and it's not discernible by somebody with mere understanding. So that the Buddha and great disciples had to explain the Paticca in different ways based on different, request and for some reasons. So that we find a lot of discourses on Paticca in Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, and also Anguttara Nikaya. And when we come to Uddaka Nikaya, we can find Paticca is told in different ways, not using that particular term Paticca. So today I think of discussing some aspect of Paticca based on few suttas, so that we remind ourselves that Paticca is such, so that your urge for your practice would be increasing. And at the same time, those who have studied Paticca before will definitely go into different aspect of Paticca again and again, and it helps them to practice some good Dhamma in this discussion. If I may start with the Buddha's statement about Paticca for Venerable Ananda, that would be something that we all need to go ahead, because it's very clear that Paticca is about causes and their results, and the results become pratyaya or causes for something else again. So this has been working as a chain of incident and events, so that somebody can tell that even in Paticca formula, 12-link formula, it is very clear, and each factor are very clear. And then when you go to the theory of Paticca, it must be sati, that's also is being clear. So theory of Paticca would be very clear to many of us, so that we might think that Paticca has no depth that much in understanding its scope. But friends, we may need many effort and energy to internalize Paticcasamuppada theory along with the other aspect of Dhamma, so that we could be able to stop the flow of craving into us. But with that aspect, in that angle, we may still need some practice. We have to let go of many things in order to bring Paticcasamuppada shine in us, so that discussing Paticcasamuppada along with that particular statement of the Buddha to Venerable Ananda would be very good for us to remind ourselves that we need to do more. This is the case. One day the Buddha was encountered by the presence of Venerable Ananda for some matters, and usually Venerable Ananda asked questions from the Buddha about the Dharma whenever he find happiness out of reflection, or whenever he find some incidents happen to Venerable Mahasangha and people and so on. This day, Venerable Ananda was in that reflection of Paticcasamuppada, so that being a Sotapanna, he was very clear with it. Then in front of the Buddha, Venerable Ananda said that Paticcasamuppada is very clear to me, Bhante. Then Buddha warned Venerable Ananda not to say it, because even though it seems very clear to you, it is very deep, it is very widespread among entire teaching, and it has been very profound for every aspect of existence. So that don't say Ananda that Paticcasamuppada is clear to me. Don't say Ananda that. Then the Buddha gave a very nice explanation to Paticcasamuppada there for Venerable Ananda, so that we can understand that Paticcasamuppada is very deep. We don't say this to other teaching like the Noble Eightfold Path, or the Four Noble Truths, or Seven Factors for Enlightenment. We don't say that kind of things for except Paticcasamuppada, because the thing we need to do with the other set of teaching would be very clear. But Paticcasamuppada, though it is in the formula and also 12 links, there should be, if we say that it is very easy, we should be able to see the Paticcasamuppada formula in our action, in our thinking, in our verbal behavior. But we are not that mindful sometimes to have that kind of very refined experience of Paticcasamuppada, right? So that it is very beneficial for us to get the topic again. The way the Paticcasamuppada, it has been an English term now, but how we go into details of Paticca, the very word Paticcasamuppada, how do we break it down? Paticca Samuppada. Paticca means the reasons. Samuppada. So it simply says things arise together. Things means both the cause and the results. For example, I close my eyes now, and when I open my eyes again, opening my eyes as well as seeing pictures happens together. Imasming sati idang hoti. When I open my eyes, I see the pictures. When the arising of open eyes, the arising of seeing happens. When there is no eye open, no pictures, and when the eyes are closed, and we cannot show pictures there. So likewise, both the reason and the karma and the action, sometimes I can say this, but when you go to karma theory, it differs from. But anyway, so the karma and action and the reasons and its results, they are arising together. That's why this direct translation is given for Paticcasamuppada, dependent co-origination. Co-origination means arise together dependently, based on something. In that case, we know the fact that every physical and mental phenomena in this body, in this world, arise together based on something. So I think that is the simplest definition we could give for Paticcasamuppada. So Paticcasamuppada is being uttered in many ways for many individuals, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and lay, male and female followers in different places by the Buddha, by the great disciples. So in order to continue start the suttas, I just selected this discourse, Nalakalapiya Sutta. It's called Bundle of Reeds. This sutta tells us a way to look at paticca, way to look at the limbs of suffering based on Paticcasamuppada. So Nalakalapiya Sutta is been talking about the dependent theory together. So I assume that you know avidya pacca sankara, sankara pacca vijnana, vijnana pacca nārūpam, and so on, all the links. There are 12, and all of them show how ignorance causes suffering to arises of being. So the arising of suffering is discussed in the first, forward order, so that we see how suffering arises in us, in everybody else. And there Buddha talks about the cessation of suffering based on Paticcasamuppada, how the suffering arises, depending on ignorance and craving, and other aspects are also there. When those conditions that could lead suffering to arise ended, there is no suffering. So that is what is Paticcasamuppada formula in many suttas, particularly in Nidana Samyutta. In Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha talks about it very clearly. In Paticcasamuppada Vibhanga, we can find that each links of the Paticcasamuppada are discussed in details. For example, what is jara marana, what is upadana, what is tanha, and what is let's say 6 sense bases, and so on. So we want to know details of each factor. You better go such analysis so that you can get the basic knowledge about it. But still, understanding Paticcasamuppada would be difficult. So I like this Nalakalapiya Sutta because it tells us so many good things, and a particular way of looking at Paticcasamuppada. To begin with, I will read this. At one time, Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahakottita were staying near Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana. So now we know that the characters of this discourse, Nalakalapiya Sutta, are two individuals mostly revered. Venerable Sariputta, the foremost of wisdom, and Venerable Mahakottita, another foremost monk for analytical wisdom. So that they both met each other at the deer park, Isipatana. In the afternoon, Venerable Mahakottita came out of retreat, went to Venerable Sariputta and exchanged greeting with him. So it is Venerable Kottita who actually went to Venerable Sariputta and exchanged friendly greeting. When the greetings and polite conversation were over, he sat down to one side and said to Venerable Sariputta, "Well, Reverend Sariputta, are old age and death both talk together always in the teaching. Jara marana, old age and death. Old age and death are old age and death made by oneself. Sayankatan dukkha. So the particular section of dukkha we talk about here is jara marana. Is it done by oneself when it happens to a particular person? The question then the other question related to it is, or by another, or by both, oneself and another, or do they arise by chance, not made by oneself or another? So 4 questions asked about the jara marana old age and death? Is it made by oneself? Is it made by somebody else? Is it made by oneself and others? Or it happens by chance? So the answer is, no, Venerable Kotita, old age and death are not made by oneself, no by another, no by both oneself and another, nor do they arise by chance, not made by oneself or another. No, he rejected all ways of arising Jara Marana. It's not done by oneself, nobody else also. It is not done by oneself and others, and it did not arise spontaneously or by chance. So then it goes, rather rebirth or the jati is the condition for old age and death. Due to arising as a human or a animal or a divine being or a hell or being, whatever it is. So you have already, arises as a being. Due to that fact, you are going to have Jara Marana, you are going to have old age and death. So that's how, it explained. The reason why this way of explanation is coming, because of those other religions at the time. So some people were there who said that that the suffering is made by oneself. Sometime from the Buddhist way, particularly those who talk about karma on a surface level, say this, that in previous life what we made has come to this life, so that we are suffering from. Actually, it happens, it is explained in other discourses like Chulakama Vibhanga Sutta. In Chulakama Vibhanga Sutta, Buddha says why some people are intelligent in this life while some people are not that intelligent. Then the Buddha gave a very nice teaching to Subha Manavaka, the young person called Subha. People who are extremely wise is because they listen to their parents and teachers and all the good people in the society without any argument. You were having that kind of life previously, so that after that, as a result, you were born as a very intelligent person. So we always see that the connection from this life to next life, but at the same time, it could not be tell that sayankatan dukkha, because the very person who misbehaved in previous life are not going to reborn again. He died there, his physical body is gone there, and he means a person who experienced impermanence, so that person who was in the previous life may not be coming in the same way in this life. Suppose the Bodhisattva's life. Bodhisattva did not know how he was in the previous life. And there is no connection. So that new person has reborn into this life. So likewise, we cannot say that sayankatan dukkha. If sayankatan dukkha, or the suffering is made by oneself, is true, the very person who was doing the bad karma previous life should come to this life with the same features, with the same body, and should experience the results of suffering. But it doesn't happen. So that the one way to reject suffering is made by oneself is such that suffering is not conditioned by oneself. Suffering is not because of oneself. Then the question is whether suffering is done by somebody else. In mundane world, we can say that because that's how people communicate. Due to your ignorance, I suffer today. Sometimes parents say to the parents say this to their children. Sometimes children say this same statement to parents. You didn't allow me to go there. If I go to that school on that day with even spending a lot of money, I would be a very good person now, but so and so. So we blame others for our suffering. It is happening everywhere in the world. But if you look at the scenario where we suffer a lot, we can say that suffering is not made by anybody else, somebody else either. It was not doing, it was not done by you and no else as well. So then, is suffering, or in this case, the particular factor, jara marana, were done by both? No, it was not done by both. Then was that particular suffering, done by chance? No, it didn't happen in that way too. Then the very reason for jara marana is the birth, jati. So then the discussion continues between Venerable Sariputta and Mahakottita. Okay, for the moment I will accept this, something like that actually, to my understanding, happened. Okay, I will accept it. Reverend Sariputta, Reverend Sariputta, is rebirth made by oneself or by another, or by both oneself and another, or not made by oneself or another, or by chance? So that is the question. So the 4 types of questions are like this. Sayankatan dukkam, whether this is done by oneself. Parankatan dukkam, whether this is done by somebody else, or meeting of these oneself and others, or without any reason, it happens by chance. These are the 4 questions related to each link. So Venerable Kottita was asked from Venerable Sariputta whether rebirth is done by oneself or somebody else, or both, or it happens by chance. So it is also rejected. The birth is because of bhava. Bhava means because the nature of becoming. This is a very difficult point of understanding in a simple language, unless listeners, unless we as Dhamma practitioners work on this further, we may not be able to understand. I suggest all of you to read about bhava, read about what the sutta says about bhava, and from your own experience, try your best to understand what this term means. So having all these things, I think you would be able to come to a very good conclusion. To me, bhava is the existence. I am Bhante J, and there are other Bhante. So when I take my name as Bhante J, I want to exist as Bhante J all the time. If we add more to it, without change, without worries, and so on. So I expect a kind of existence of myself in situation, in this atmosphere. So that is a kind of bhava. When we go through the aggregate of feeling, we can understand the term better. So we have 3 types of feeling. What are the 3 types of feeling? Sukha Vedana, pleasant feeling; Dukkha Vedana, unpleasant feeling; and Adukkam Sukha Vedana, neutral feeling. So, as humans, when we have pleasant feeling, do we need to end it? Does your intention work that this is enough? No, because we always we all like to have pleasant feeling. When we go to temple, if things make us pleasant, who reject it? Nobody. We like it. When we are at home, your whole effort is to make the atmosphere inside the house wholesome. And whatever you eat, whatever you drink, whatever you wear, wherever you go, so your mind says that this should be very nice. It's marvelous and so on. But this is the problem. Keeping that pleasant feeling in our mind, in our body, is difficult. Because the pleasant feeling is naturally impermanent. It arises in the salayatana when that particular function of the salayatana is taking place. So what arises due to causes and condition has the nature of ceasing. So if feeling arises in the salayatana, chakku sota gana jiva kaya mana, based on condition, it has the nature of ending too. So though we like to keep pleasant feeling unchanged, it doesn't happen because of this nature. So that your feeling to be exist as I, me, and myself with happiness, with it doesn't work. So I think the bhava, in a simplest form, is the desire for existence on karma, on pleasant things. So if you go to the unpleasant feeling, dukkha vedana, when you have dukkha vedana, you don't want to keep it at all. You want to end it soon because you don't like that burning issue. You don't like that pressure in your mind and body. It should be ended because it's healthy. Because if you feel that something is going on, it's perfectly okay to meet a doctor or a similar person and get some support. So that should be done. But at the same time, if you understand bhava, it talks about existence of something, existence of your own self. So when you feel that existing of self is always the existing of this and that, all there, the birth of particular thing arises. I do not limit this to particular birth of a being, but I would like to tell you that the bhava could also, bhava and jati both could also be understood in a simple situation, because arising of a thought is also a kind of jati. We talk about the jati of beings. We can talk about the birth of particular situation, birth of this and that, and so forth. So that we are to say that the Paticca could also be understood with normal examples also. So here let's focus on the sutta. Venerable Sariputta says, no, the jati didn't do by anybody. Sayankatang is rejected, Parankatang is rejected, Sayankatang, Parankatang are also rejected, and Aditya Samuppannang by chance is also rejected. So then what is the reason why Paticca, why this happened? It is because of bhava. When there is bhava, there is jati. When the bhava arises, jati arises too. So that is the very reason. We can have a discussion about bhava if you have anything, but I would definitely go to other parts as Venerable Sariputta and Mahakotita discuss. So you will find time to make your comments and additions to the discussion later on. So next, as we all know, the next quality they discuss is about upadana, right? Grasping. So Venerable Sariputta was questioned about upadana. Is upadana done by oneself, somebody else, or another, or both oneself and another, or by chance? The same answer is given. It was not done by anyone. It was not done by the nature. It is because of tanha. So tanha is the very reason for us to have upadana. So then we can see the reasons are, the reasons of feeling is talk about, the reasons of contact and sixth sense media, and then name and form, and then consciousness, and also then we see the consciousness is not done by anybody else or somebody else. So like previously, consciousness is made by consciousness is because of name and form. So this is a particular sutta where the direction of the journey of a being turns from nama rupa to vinyana, vinyana to nama rupa. So ignorance has been playing a major role in each aspect of Paticca. However, Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Kotita say this here, the beginning of the suffering is because of the relationship between Nam and Rupa, Rupa and Nam. So in this discourse, Nalakalabhi Sutta, we see this important point that Reverend Kotita, consciousness is not made by oneself, no by another, no by both oneself and another, nor does it arise by chance, not made by oneself or another. Rather, name and form, name and form, name and form are conditioned for consciousness. So it is the consciousness, vijnana condition the name and form. We have discussed this before when we talk about the five aggregates, how five aggregates arises in Salayatana. As you all know from Madhupindika Sutta and many similar suttas, that the senses meet their sensory objects, and if this happens in a person who is still living, consciousness arises, particular consciousness arises, such as chakku vinyan, eye consciousness, and so forth. Then in the ayatana is like a box, I would say. Chakku ayatana is a kind of department which many activities happen. So in that particular example, when eyes meet the particular seeing, when the function of seeing happens, consciousness arises in the box called contact, and as soon as contact happens, two things arises together, perception and feeling. So what is taken into the box called chakku ayatana, it has now produces feeling and perception based on or with the help of particular aspect of our mind, vedana, sanya, chetana, passa, manasikara. So I think it's a meeting. Nama, five components of nama come to this particular area called salayatana, chakkwayatana, sohotayatana to accept rupa there. Because rupa is always coming from six senses. Rupa, whether you see things from your eyes, whether you hear from your ears, they are all producing rupa, rupa kanda. So rupa kanda is not meaningful and existing unless nama, components of nama, components of mind and matter, mind doesn't come, do not come, sorry. So in other words, vedana, sanya, chetana, passa, manasikara, that quality of five things should be in the contact, in the salayatana, to accept the rupa. So that's how this connection happens. So I tell you this because that is how skandha arises. If this happened to a particular average person, it turned into upadana kanda immediately. But if that happens to a arahant, there is no padana, but the skandha are produces in his mind immediately. So when we see this way of arising pancha kanda, pancha upadana kanda, we know that that formula, it is not done by oneself, it is not done by another, it is not done by oneself and another, and it is not done by chance. It has many causes due to the eyes which is working, and due to the seeing something from the eyes, their eye consciousness arises. So with eye consciousness, there is a way to feel it, there is a way to perceive it, there is a way to create ideas, so that we all know how vijnana, they are playing a big role for skandha to arise. So that this is very clear. This message is very clear. Ignorance can play a big role in making things worse. But Vijnana, the relationship between Vijnana and Namarupa and Namarupa Vijnana is the key things. I think if you want to point out the beginning of somebody, this is the beginning of that somebody, right? The beginning of us is between the relationship of Vijnana and Namarupa. So then we can ask the question. How we came to this world. Today we had a discussion at the Mississauga temple, and we were discussing that the birth of a being, particularly human, does not happen when the mother delivers the baby. It is the conventional truth. Based on conventional truth, our birthdays are reckoned on the day our mother delivered us. But real birth happens well before that, when the mother and the father made that connection, and when the mother is in a fertile state, consciousness, which has the possibility of 5 aggregates along with karma, bound to that particular mixture or substance from mother and father. This is called descending a particular vijnana. That is the very moment that Nam Rupa Vijnana Pacha Nam Rupang Nam Rupacha Vijnana takes place. So what kind of Vijnana is this? We have a particular word for that, Pratisandhi Vijnana. Vijnana that makes the birth. So even though we have that particular name for it, the Vijnana over there is quite similar to the Vijnana right now we have. So you have Vijnana because you hear my voice. You can see me through the screen and I can see your names over there. So without Vijnana, I cannot do any of those things. I hear you and you hear me. That is because of Vijnana. And you can see me and I can see you. That is because of Chakku Vijnana and so on. So Vijnana is working. This Vijnana that works now is quite similar to the Vijnana that depart from a particular body and arise, the same thing. So that we know that Nam Rupa Pacha Vijnana, Vijnana Pacha Nam Rupang, this is the place where the suffering arises. This is the very seed for suffering. So when you see that Vijnana or consciousness made Nam Rupa to arise, and Nam Rupa, without Nam Rupa, there is no consciousness, so that you begin to clarify yourself that the suffering way well beyond that is because of this beginning. So the ignorance, when you understand that Vijnana is such and Nam Rupa is such, and the combination of Nam Rupa and Vijnana happen in this way, the ignorance about it is gone. Ignorance about Vijnana is gone. Ignorance about Nama Rupa is gone. Ignorance about the relationship between Nama Rupa and Vijnana is also gone, so that there is only kind of wisdom there. No space and no chance for ignorance or avidya to arise. That's how ignorance is being attacked by the practitioner. We want to know our mind, how our mind started, which way mind is supported by, and which factor. When you know this, particularly when you know Vijnana, how Vijnana arises, how Namarupa arises based on Vijnana, and how Namarupa made Vijnana again, so that you are not having any ignorance there. So when you don't have ignorance there, your whole journey from Vijnana to Namarupa to Salayatana, and so on, goes positively, and there is no Vedana Pacha Tanha then. No Tanha Pacha Upadana, no Upadana Pacha Bhava, no Bhava Pacha Jati, no jadipaccha jara marana soka parideva dukkha domanas. Because ignorance is broken by understanding Vijnana and Namarupa. If you look at the Nidana Samyutta of the Samyutta Nikaya, Buddha Bodhisattva, before he became the enlightened Buddha, he was questioning why Jara Marana is here in us, in living beings. Jara Marana is because of our birth. And what is the reason for birth? Because of the existence, because of the existence for many forms. And then why this bhava is because of attachment. And he goes back to the order and found out that between Vijnana and Nam Rupa, the problem arises. So that's why I'm telling here that if somebody understands Vijnana and Nam Rupa exactly as they are, as a theory, as well as a practice, there is no ignorance in his mind. Ignorance is broken, ignorance is shattered, ignorance is dismantled there, so that the whole link could be other way around, right? So Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahakottita rightly discuss here that the order is going to change, or the order is going to reverse from there. Then, Reverend Sir, I shall give you a simile. So then, Venerable Kottita said this to Venerable Sariputta, that how then should we see the meaning of this statement? Also, when Venerable Sariputta says that Namarupa is because of Vijnana and Vijnana is because of Namarupa, this is a kind of puzzling state for somebody who doesn't know about it. Then Venerable Mahakottita asks, how do we understand this statement further? Then Venerable Sariputta in the discourse give a simile so that wise people or sensible people understand the simile and also the dharma behind it, so that let me tell you this simile so you understand it. It doesn't mean that Venerable Kottita cannot understand the Paticca. It is there, but out of respect for everybody else, they continue their discussion. And one person, particularly here, Venerable Mahakottita, shows that he wants to question this for the sake of everybody else. So then Venerable Sariputta gave the simile. This is the simile. Suppose there were two bundle of reeds leaning up against each other. Not only these particular two bundles, but anything you take like wood, and if you put things together like this, it is a support for one another to stay like that. If you take one out, the other will definitely fall immediately. So that is the simile Venerable Sariputta gives here. In the same way, name and form are conditioned for consciousness. Consciousness is a condition for name and form. Name and form are conditioned for sixth sense field. The sixth sense field are conditioned for contact. Then it goes to the very end of it, and this is how this entire mass of suffering originates. Friends, so why do we need to learn Paticca in this way? Just to understand suffering, and suffering arises. So these are the very reason why we understand Paticca, why we read Paticca. So when you look at those sub-link of Paticca and what made this suffering to arise, you could see A to Z of it, so that now you are knowledgeable to take decision in ending suffering, in taking good measures of suffering, because you see how things come. If a doctor sees the causes of illness of a patient, he's going to give the best medicine for patients to cure from that illness, because the doctor shows the main cause of why this illness took place. So likewise, when you know the particular reasons of suffering, you are going to stop that kind of suffering then and there, right? So if we take average examples, we can understand this deep teaching in a simple form. So Venerable Sariputta says, this is how the entire mass of suffering originates. If the first of those bundle of reeds were to pull out, the other would collapse. And if the first of those bundle of reeds were to pull, I'm reading the same thing. So in this way, when name and form ceases, consciousness ceases. Name and form arise based on consciousness. When consciousness is not there, no Namarupa. And when Namarupa is not produced in such a way, consciousness may not be able to exist either as well. Then when consciousness ceases, name and form ceases. When name and form ceases, the sixth sense field sense cease. When sixth sense field cease, contact ceases. And this is how the entire mass of suffering ceases. How do we make this so simple? First and foremost, we have to look at ourselves. When the Buddha said that we are all, we are all made up of four elements and senses and aggregates and so on, we have to look at us in order to see whether the Buddha's statement is right. Somehow we manage to get the point that we are made by this and that. So kind of sangvega, sense of urgency arises. Because if we are made by some elements, what is the use of it? Because the elements are always subject to impermanence too. Whatever made by elements are like other things, so that we come to a decision that I do not allow anything. I do not allow anything to take me into karma. I would definitely make changes in my attitude, in my thinking, so that we can see that rising of suffering and also the cessation of suffering happen if we understand ourselves. So those monks and nuns who took meditation subject and meditated under trees and in secure places, because they wanted to stop suffering. And how did they stop suffering? By seeing the gradual progression of suffering based on certain things. In other words, everybody who attained to even to Sotapanna stage did so by seeing Paticca in their physical, verbal, and mental behaviors. In order to find out the truth, learn Paticca as a theory and look at you. And when you look at you, you see Paticca, nothing but else. So that is why Buddha told Venerable Ananda that this is deep. Then we can see in the discourse that that admiration from Venerable Kottita for Venerable Sariputta for that explanation. It is incredible, Venerable Sariputta. It is amazing how well spoken this was. This was by Venerable Sariputta, and we can express our agreement with Venerable Sariputta's statement on these 36 grounds. 36 grounds. What are the 36 grounds? If we, if we divide them in two, it's called 18, and 36 ground here is with the way, what you would say, each factor is discussed in four ways: Sankatang, Parankatang, and Adicca Sampanna. There are 12 links, and when 12 is no, that's not the way this is mean. Yeah, from 12 we take only 10, and then when it comes to questions each factor by 2, it becomes 40. And 36th ground here comes with regard to, with regard to 12 links, arising of suffering and also cessation of suffering. So that is what Venerable Sariputta says here. If a mendicant teaches Dhamma for disillusionment, dispassion, and cessation regarding old age and death, they are qualified to be called a mendicant who speak on the Dhamma, Dhamma Paticca. So Venerable Sariputta did not forget to say this because it is very important. If a monk discuss about Paticca with the sense of disillusionment, nibbida, dispassion, viraga, and cessation, nirodha, he should be called as a Dhammakati. In other words, in sermons, in Dhamma talks, we need to add at least few lines which talk about the rising of suffering and how suffering is ceased. In other words, when we discuss Dhamma, the listener's mind should incline into understanding who we are and what we are based on the Buddha's teaching. And there should be a kind of Dhamma Samvega in them so that they are going out of the sermon by cultivating some kusala. So that any Dhamma sermon that talks about the suffering and the rising of suffering and the cessation of suffering, and they could be called Dhamma Desana, they could be called Dhamma Desaka, or people Dhamma Khatika. So that is very important. If you want, suppose you listen to Dhamma talks or talks given by lay people, monks and nuns, and sometimes we do not find that this essence of Dhamma Katika, the characteristic features of Dhamma Katika of those people. They may be talking about certain things about Buddhist meditation, Buddha's teaching, and so on, but the listeners do not make any change of their attitude, even with some minor things. Some Dhammadesana are just only facts, just only this and that, and by listening, they are not giving even pamujja, even sukha or whatever basic components of happy mind. So that if a monk talk about the the nibbida, if somebody talk about the dharma, particularly parishampada, and as a result, if nibbida arises or viraga and nirodha arises, that is the perfect dhamma you should listen, according to Venerable Sariputta. If they practice for disillusionment, dispassion, and cessation regarding old age and death, they are qualified to be called a mendicant who practices in line with the teaching. If they are freed by not grasping by delusion, dispassion, and cessation regarding old age and death, they are qualified to be called a mendicant who has attained extinguishment in this very life. If a mendicant teaches Dhamma for the disillusionment regarding other factors, it is said. So basically, Venerable Sariputta says here, if we talk about Jara Marana, and that is considered as right Dhamma. And if you talk about any formula, any link of the formula and deliver a Dhamma sermon, they all should, give the results of disillusionment or nibbida, dispassion, and cessation. So nibbida, viraga, nirodha, they are very important aspect of our mind when we practice Dhamma. Now think about you. You listen to Dhamma sermon frequently, you read Dhamma books, and you engage with Dhamma discussion. Have you feel ever a sense of nibbida, sense of viraga, sense of cessation? When you practice meditation, when you listen to Dharma talks, when you engage with Dharma discussion, at this occasion, have you felt your mind shift from average level to a particular happy state? So, friends, I don't know, but particularly when you speak the Dhamma, it should happen to himself or others who listen to the teaching. So that here, Venerable Sariputta discussed that if death and if old age and death, what do you call, are included in your speech, and how death happened, and which way death happened, which way jara happened, and what is jara and maran according to absolute truth. So you address all these so that your mind goes to actually this nibbida, viraga, and nirodha, because you know the very fact very clearly. You know what is jara, you know what is maran, you know what is upadana, you know how it comes and which way it comes, so and so on. Your whole intention is to know it so that your way of Dhamma talk is right. So that is what Buddha said, Venerable Sariputta said to Venerable Mahakotita at the end of the discourse. And see, this is one of the discourses of Paticca out of many. I selected this discourse to show you that both great disciples were discussed about various things, including Paticca, so that it would be very easy for others to get into the real practice. So there are other suttas about Paticca, like Paticca Vibhanga Sutta. If you want more clarification on each factor, for example, what is Salayatana, what is Upadana, and which way we need to understand Tan and so on. So you can get those discourses like Vibhanga Sutta. But I really find interesting about some suttas, particularly Upanishad Sutta in Samyutta Nikaya. There it clearly gives us the message that not only unhappy state are discussed in Paticca, we can also discuss Paticca on positive side, like 37 factors of enlightenment. If you look at the real map of 37 factors of enlightenment, they arise gradually based on one thing, based on something, based on this and that. So every good things in our life arises based on Paticca too, not only suffering. So that is being discussed in Upanishad Sutta very clearly. So friends, as I began the discussion, I told you that an exposition of Paticca is in today's class. So this is it. I am careful to say this, that we discuss all about Paticca. Even though we discuss all about Paticca, it doesn't mean that we fully comprehend Paticca. Comprehending full scope of Paticca is taking place when we attain to stages of enlightenment. It's still the very last thing is arahantship. So after that, he doesn't or she doesn't have anything to do with regard to Paticca in attaining enlightenment, because he has done it. However, even as I remember, even arahants may not be able to understand Paticca just like the Buddha did, because Buddha's knowledge about Paticca is so vast, is unthinkable, not discernible by average humans. Even Venerable Sariputta was not able to understand the Buddha's whole scope of life, whole scope of Dhamma. So that we know the fact that Paticca should be comprehended fully. Then and there you get into stages of enlightenment, and even full enlightenment is taking place as a result of putting Paticca into application. So that's what I thought of sharing with you based on Nalakalabhi Sutta. I think Dr. Pial has to say something. You can take your time.
So Bante, thank you so much. I think this is a very key sutra. I think I'm glad that you picked this sutra to start Paticca. I guess there are many others, but this is a key thing because of this dependency between Namarupa and Vijnana factors. So if you pull one, the other will fall. In other words, this is a time, it's happening at the time of birth too, because the Vijnana, when it descends, I forget the, I guess the sutra, but it descends to the womb, and then there are few things can happen. With the Namarupa can depart, then the Vijnana can depart, that the Namarupa does not develop. In other words, fetus does not come to full development. So they are dependent on each other all the time for the full growth of the fetus. I mean, this is like a more scientific way, but it makes sense though. Like the consciousness has to be there for certain things to even to brain to develop. For example, if like blind, say mice kept in the dark, they can't open their eyes. Their brain doesn't kind of develop because they don't get any sensory stimulation, something like that. So there are some experiments being done, but it's important the Vijnana to be there for the consciousness, Nama Rupa to develop, Rupa especially. So both to go together. And also, this is not only happening at time of birth. I guess it's also happening right now. At the same time, we are having an instant birth and death. Maybe perhaps we call Shanika Upati, like because the birth is defined as rising of Salayatana or the five aggregates in a way, and some definitions. So it's happening all the time. So our aggregates are being produced as we speak right now. I'm speaking, aggregates are rising and passing away. So it's Paticca is on the move, right? I mean, it's Namarupa Salayatana. But I think the first few steps, I believe, is hard for us to fathom, because avidya, we are in the term of avidya, avidya sankara, sankara pacha vijnana, vijnana namarupa. So, I mean, we cannot be aware of that, but we can be aware from some sutra starts from Salayatana itself. What is the origin of the world? Buddha talks about samudaya, loka samudaya, talks about starting from Salayatana right away. When the eye meets the object, eye conscious, like goes down. So Indriya Sangare, I mean, we can be aware of that from beginning of that part. I think even if you put effort, like eventually your mind becomes with the true kind of meditation training, you probably may be able to aware of that sense. Then at the end, maybe you can, when you hear, you only hear to come to certain awareness of equanimous state. But I think the first few steps is kind of hard. It kind of in the background. It's hard for us. I believe it's happening very fast, and it's in the background. It's kind of hard to us to fathom. Maybe that's why perhaps he started in some sutra at the Salayatana level and went down, origin of the world, ending of the world. This is my idea, my
I agree with that, because of the depth of Paticca, there are many approaches to understand it. Buddha has not given only one way to go into the real scope of Paticca. He has provided us many avenues, like as you said. Sometimes the suttas discusses the Paticca, where Salayatana begins, and sometimes, like Madhupindika Sutta, we can see that the whole process start from the senses meet sensory experiences, and most famously, people are to say that avidya is the beginning of the every beings and so on. And some people used to say that jati is the beginning because it's a new beginning, right? It's a chain going from this life to this life, but beginning of a new being is taking place when mother and father get together and this thing happens. So this is why I think Venerable Ananda was warned by the Buddha, not to say that you understand everything.
Yeah.
Because when I say that this is Paticca, somebody can say that no, this is the way I understand. So we cannot deny the other person.
Yeah.
Because it is such a vast, widespread teaching among everything, about everything. So that I think I'm not surprised I'm not surprised about the fact that I have difficulty in understanding Patisampada fully, because it has many aspects. It has many ways to get into it. So I think because of this difficulty of Patisampada as a whole, I think it has a beauty too, because so long it becomes deep and difficult, it has some
interest. You want to inquire. Yes.
Yeah, we are inquiring always. We are making that effort always to clarify this and that. But for sure, we have caught up the major areas of Paticca just to stop the flow of huge craving. Because when you read it over and over, when you listen to the Paticca over and over, when you think about different Dhamma based on Paticca over and over, you have that energy to at least to stop basic violation of principles, like because we see from our experience and also our scholarship that we are going to reborn in hell and unhappy places if we do this. So that we should stop this, we should stop doing this. And if we are to have this kind of unclear, unpleasant thoughts, we are going to have this experience. That also understood based on Paticca. Paticca is always linked to karma. So karma, when karma theory is understood, you have actually comprehend a part of Paticca too. When you understand your mind connection between your mind and body, how things arises, you understand a part of Paticca. So I think frequent gathering of knowledge on Paticca this way or the other way has done some significant progress in alleviating suffering, causes of suffering as well.
And according to your knowledge, do you, like Chula Vedala Sutta talks about Sanya Vedi Nirodha, and at that point with this, I mean, they are like, it's like it's a cusp of enlightenment of being at that stage. So Paticca they stop, like it's a time where the Paticca is kind of falling apart because you don't continue, because you don't have any more craving at that point, right?
Yeah, that's true. Indeed. Yeah, you have given the full, you have seized everything there so that there is no continuation. So when there is such a big gap in your mind continent, it means that you are in the highest experience of nirvanic nibbana, so that when you come out of it, you may not be able to have those craving in your mind at all.
Because the conditions are there, this arises, the conditions are gone. It's not, I mean, iti idang bingsati idang hoti, idang pada idang upachadi, imaswing asati idang nahoti, imaswing nirodha idang nirojati. So in other words, I mean, this is shunyata, like in other words, emptiness, because only whatever we are existing, because my body conditions are there. The conditions are gone, I will cease to exist in this moment, or in the future too, the same thing. If the conditions come together, I will exist. But if the conditions are not there, so in other words, it's a continuous cycling process, but the essence is empty, zero.
Indeed. True.
Yeah, I mean, not zero in a sense that in number, but like shunya, like nothing. So this is what the principle of Paticca is trying to explain in a way. Emptiness, I mean, absolute emptiness, like paramashunya. Like, in other words, I do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. So I just want to tell everyone that how we generalize this teaching, like in this sutta. So the dukkha is not done by oneself, is not done by anybody else,
depending on the condition.
Yeah. So I I always take this to point people that don't worry, according to the
Yeah.
way the Dharma takes place, it's not done by you. It's just without taking people into the clarification. It's because of your craving you did this.
Yeah.
For example, so one person came to me and said that so I'm so upset about what those people do in those people did for that kind of people. For example, it is a fight, it is a
Conflict.
conflict. So a person who is totally away from it saying now that I'm totally upset about this conflict. And I told him that according to the Buddha's teaching, it is because of craving they have, it is because of ignorance they have. So I told him that the Buddha's or Arahant's way of analyzing problem is not, is not based on people. They always blame the very ignorance and craving for it. In other words, suppose you have a problem, now you are suffering from. You may understand that it happens because of lack of wisdom in you, lack of mindfulness in you, lack of virya in you. So when you blame that missing part of you, you are next going to make it. So that the Aryan way of analyzing problem is taking the very point of mind, like ignorance make the problem, craving make the problem, upadana make the problem. So when you analyze the problem in such a way, the remedy is finding by filling the gap. So
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
so
So
that
even that. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead. Yeah. So that's what I want to say. Sayankatan dukkha. So I tell, of course, you experience the
Yeah.
pain out of this problem.
Yeah.
But in order to make the pain out of your mind, just think that it is because of your ignorance. It is because of your not knowing about the reality. You suffer from it. Right now, blamed for your own mind, geared by ignorance. When you do that, you are
Yes.
going to be careful about it again. You are going to be careful about what causes this suffering made for you
Right.
now, and you are not going to repeat it. So you are not blaming your wife, you are not blaming your husband, you are not blaming your children, you are not blaming for anybody else. You are blaming your own ignorance. You are blaming your own situation which lack of coherence and lack of confidence and so on. That's why it happens. For example, let's say if Dr. Pial accused me for something I did. So I would be getting angry by listening to it. If I take it as my own, if I say if I say this that it is only a couple of words he uttered, and I don't take in, so I won't be angry. So it is me who take the problem as mine and make my mind impure with anger, impure, so that anger rises. So even though Dr. Pial says something negative, it is my responsibility in making anger.
So your expectations, in other words, for me to not to say anything like that. So in your just craving or your desire for me to not to say things like that makes you suffer at the end of the day.
That's true.
And also at the end of the day, it's your practice. Like a person who's like a sovan person, the way to take it, non-returner, once returner, arahat, it depends on where you are actually.
That's
because
everything depends on how we deal with ignorance, how we deal with craving and upadana. Depends on how you practice the dharma. If we do not have essence of dharma in us, we are going to actually become victim of those ignorance and so forth. Definitely.
Important to know is also it's anupubba sikka, like pratipada. So it's a gradual path. Some people want to grab everything. Okay, I want to become a streamline driver. It has steps, right? You gradually become, when you start practicing, it's a gradual path. You can, in the West, I think it's the problem is they want to grab everything, instant gratification. It doesn't happen, I guess, right? The Buddha's teaching is.
Yeah, I remember the funny way of saying this. One day a person went to a teacher looking for happiness, right? So this person goes to the teacher, and teacher is really intelligent. And this strange man say, I want to be happy. Then the teacher says, just if you want to be happy, okay? If you want to be happy, just erase these couple of words, I want. Then you will be in happiness.
Yeah, I think I saw this, a cartoon or something.
Yeah, something, it's come from a story, I think.
Yeah,
It's absolutely true.
And story.
Yeah.
So if you want to be happy, just take out
I
want. So if you take I want part from there is only happiness in that sentence. So not only in that sentence, happiness exists, in you also happiness exists, because you do not find I want. Both I is a gift. Want is craving and attachment. So you have taken wrong view, and upadana and tanna there, so that real happiness exists in you.
So true.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Piel and Tindi, for contributing. And we have only a couple of people today, so they are positively listening to our discussion. So it is about an exposition of Paticca based on few discourses. However, we mainly ground on particular sutta by Venerable Sariputta and Mahakoti, that is called Nalakalapi Sutta. If you want to read it on your own, Google it. Otherwise, take the book. It is from Samyutta Nikaya in Nidana Samhita. So that is how we continued our discussion, and we are going to conclude our session for today. By the power of this Dhamma we discuss, may we all be able to practice Dhamma from moment to moment, so that your practice would be a completed one day, making your realization a complete one. And may these merits be with you. May your family members, relatives, and friends would be okay. And may your departed relatives would also be okay by the power of these merits. In case of real need of support, even divine beings support you for your Dhamma practice. And finally, whoever support you or not, may you be able to practice the right Dhamma and attain Nirvana soon.
Sadhu,
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 sadhu.
sadhu.